Awesome. I'm Megan Sanicki, the Executive Director of the Drupal Association, and I'm so excited that you're all here this week because this is a special time where we unite as a community to level up our skills and to contribute back to the project. And I want to give a big thank you to the DrupalCon team, which is made up of staff and many, many volunteers. So if you've helped put on DrupalCon as a volunteer, maybe you're speaking or you're a track chair, a sprint mentor, can you please stand up? Go ahead, there's so many of you, please stand up. You are amazing, thank you. So thankful. So our community often asks this question, what does Drupal mean to you? And I've just been on a really big listening tour with the community, and I often ask this question to everyone I meet, and I am incredibly inspired by all the answers I hear. And when I was just in Germany meeting with that community, they actually turned it on me and asked me, what does Drupal mean to you? And my answer is, I believe that Drupal creates meaningful relationships that matter because they improve your life and they just make the world a little bit brighter. And we see this all the time in the community. We talk about our special relationships, and Dries even highlights them in his Driesnote. But you know, these special relationships are also happening with the digital experiences that we create with Drupal. And that's because Drupal allows us to customize human experiences between organizations and the people they serve. You know, when a university builds a website and an app, it's not just a website and an app. They're fostering a student through a lifelong journey to start a career. That's really special. So raise your hand if you have had a Drupal digital experience improve your life. Yeah? I see a lot of hands up. Well, me too, in a lot of different ways. But specifically this summer, when I witnessed the total solar eclipse, and I used this website that NASA built with Drupal. It gave me all the information that I needed, what time to be outside, where to go, and all the information I would need to fully understand this experience that I was witnessing. And because of Drupal's scalability, it helped me and 40 million people unite around the celestial event that gave us a brief moment of awe together. And it's a day I will never forget. So thanks, NASA. And these digital experiences are happening all over the world. When I was in the Netherlands, I learned about this Drupal site that won an award. And what it's doing is connecting doctors with patients and giving those people the information they need to take control of their life. And it's working. There are 12% less doctor visits because of this site. That's 8 million less doctor visits. Just imagine the millions of people now who are moving forward with much happier and healthier lives because of this website. I think this is a really special story, and we want so many more of these happening around the world. And that's why the Drupal Association's goal this year is to help grow Drupal adoption. And you know, we don't want to grow for growth's sake. We want to grow so we can scale the impact around the world. And to do this, we're going to have to really lean into our mission to unite the global open source community to build and promote Drupal. We're going to have to really focus on those action verbs, the unite, the build, the promote. And what I mean by that is we have to keep working together as a community and build the right things so that people fall in love with Drupal more and more. And then we have to work together to figure out the right way to promote it so more people know how great Drupal is. And Dries is going to talk about this in his Driesnote, and I'm really excited to start working on some initiatives with you. But before we get to the Driesnote, let me give you some highlights about this week that I'm really excited about. So first, we're going to start expanding DrupalCon. It is and always will be for builders. And what I mean by that is the people who build the community, who build Drupal, the people who are building digital experiences with Drupal, and then the people who are building businesses around our software. It will always be for all of you. We also want to open it up for other people that are very important to digital experiences, especially those who choose Drupal, like the CMOs and the CIOs. And we also want to open it up for those who use Drupal in the marketing departments. Let me talk a little bit about the choose side. So these are the CMOs, the CIOs. They're the ones that decide if we're going to have Drupal in our organization. And we want them here so we can tell them just all the things that they can do with Drupal and why they should come and join us. And I did some phone interviews about a year ago and asked, how can we make DrupalCon more valuable for you? And they said, you know, I came to DrupalCon and it was great. But there wasn't really anything for me, so I don't have a reason to come back. But I'm really glad you called because I want to be a part of your community. And we want them to be here too, and we want them to join us in our community. And so we have started to expand what we can offer to them, starting with a new track called the Technical Leadership Track. And we are also going to have a roundtable discussion with this group today after the Driesnote, so we can talk about how to create an on-ramp into our community, because we can really use their help. And it'd be great to have them in our community. Now, looking over at the other side, the people who use Drupal in their marketing departments, like content editors, campaign managers, SEO, we want to serve them too. When I was at Drupal Camp London speaking, I presented, that's right, woo! When I was at Drupal Camp London speaking, I covered topics like Drupal in the marketplace, and it was very marketing specific. And at the end, a content editor came up to me and said, thank you so much for speaking in words I understood. I understood how Drupal is used by a marketing person. And they said, you know, I go to Drupal events and I don't really feel it's for me. They're talking about modules and other things that don't help me in my job. We want to change that. We want them here at DrupalCon too. And so we have started to expand in that area as well. And we now have the content and editorial track. And we're really excited to expand in this area and get more people who are marketing experts to come, because we want them to join our community too. Can you imagine if we had more marketing people helping us promote Drupal in our camps and all the other amazing programs that we create together? So I'm excited about this, and you'll see more of this over the next year, 2 years, as we keep expanding to keep growing our community. A few other highlights: we have the Ambitious Experience stage. This is where you can learn about industry trends, so check this out in the exhibit hall. Lots of great speakers there. And because we're expanding, we have the most sessions ever. We have over 190 sessions, so there is definitely something for everyone. And you asked for case studies in all the surveys, more case studies, and guess what? You've got them. In almost every track, we have a case study just for you. Some are technical, some are business, they cover many industries. Please check them out. And of course, we still have an amazing program for the community. It's one of the main reasons we're here. So please check out the sessions and the Building Community track. If you want to talk about the future of Drupal, go to Core Conversations, and make sure you get yourself ready for the contribution sprints on Friday. They are incredibly inspiring, and so much good work happens there. And our community loves to have fun, and we have many social events for you to attend at night. And it's a great way to meet each other and make new friendships. And here is a highlight I'm incredibly proud of. We have a speaker diversity initiative because we want our speakers to reflect the great diversity within our community. And with the hard work of our track chairs, 40% of our speakers are from underrepresented groups. That is amazing. And also for the first time, we have the Open Web Lounge. We are building bridges with other projects so that we can protect the web together. And I am proud to work with Automatic, who helped get the booth, and together we pulled in Joomla, an open source initiative, and many other projects, because together we're stronger. And if not us, then who? Please make sure you go check out this booth. It's very important. It's in the exhibit hall, booth 917. So, no matter who you are or what your interest is, we have something for you. Check out the Why Attend section of our website. We have suggested programming that we think would make it easier for you to find the right session or lab that's best for you. So, that is some highlights for the week. I hope you have a great time. I'm so glad you're here. And just remember, be human and think digital. So, we could not have this event without the help of all of our sponsors. And it's not just about how they subsidize the cost of your ticket, it's the knowledge that they bring to our event in so many ways, sessions as well as the people at their booths. So go and talk with them and get their tips from the trenches. And raise your hand if you use Drupal.org. Yeah, you do. And guess who's paying for that? These amazing supporting partners. So many businesses are giving back. We are very grateful. And for the first time, we are highlighting our contributors, our top contributors, as part of our big roll of thank yous, because what you do really matters. And so I want to give a special thank you. Here are some of the top individual contributors. Specifically, go ahead, yes, please clap. It's amazing. And I just want to point out, I specifically put these in alphabetical order because I don't want any burnout while everyone's trying to get to some #1 spot. It is all of us working together. We also have many businesses that are sponsoring our work, which is really important, and it's businesses from lots of different industries. And so we're thankful for them as well. And as you might recall, we recently had to rely on a very important team to help with the security issue. So I wanted to take a moment to thank the security team for all of their hard work and for protecting all of our websites. Bravo. Okay, and now for just some housekeeping. We want DrupalCon to always be a very welcoming event, and that's why we have the Code of Conduct. So check it out in your program guides. There's some signs around the convention center. And if you feel that you need to talk to someone and get some help, the two people to go to are Rachel Lawson and Brooke Candelaria. Yep, they're raising their hand. I'm sure you can see them. But also you can use the email alias on the screen. We have 2 session changes. So if you're going to room 201 at 1 o'clock today, there's a new session there. Modernized Drupal 8 admin user experience and accessibility with material admin theme. That's not easy to say. And the other one, if you are going to room 205 AB at 2:15, it is now getting closer to your customer. And after the Driesnote, please go to the grand lobby where we will all come together for taking the traditional group photo. And we all love our caffeine, as you know from the pre-note. So it's in the exhibit hall until 11 a.m. and it's free. And let's thank SiteGround for helping make that happen. It's amazing. Security team and coffee get the biggest claps. Good job. All right, and lunch, we do it a little bit differently now. It's a 2-hour window. It gives you some flexibility to choose when you want to eat and which sessions you want to go to. So that's also in the exhibit hall. Just head to the back. And tonight is one of our social events. It's Women in Drupal, so please come join us. Also, make sure you take note of this address. There are 2 tin roofs. Make sure you go to the right one. And get ready for trivia night on Thursday. This is a special community event, and everyone is welcome. If you're new, you actually get your team more points. So please check this out, and thank you, Palantir, for sponsoring this event. And that's it. We're ready to have a DrupalCon. Thank you for all of your time. And now I would like to introduce Steve Persch, Lead Developer Advocate of Pantheon, one of our diamond sponsors. I'm sweaty.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Persch, Lead Developer Advocate at Pantheon. Pantheon is proud to again be a sponsor here at DrupalCon. And I'm happy to say that personally, Nashville is my 10th DrupalCon. Introducing Dries here today has me thinking back to my first DrupalCon, San Francisco in 2010. You might remember that one as the year of the Icelandic volcano eruption. Things were a little different back in 2010. The decision had just been made to switch version control systems from CVS to Git. 2010 saw the debut of Project Mercury, a Pantheon precursor, built with the idea that Drupal would scale if you did it right. And in 2010 at the Driesnote, we heard how concepts like the semantic web would allow the entire internet to function as one giant database, with each person controlling the information they shared about themselves. Well, in 2018, those giant databases are out there, but the controls are lacking. We've seen over the last 8 years what happens when the values of open source are not the drivers of growth for that giant global graph. But at Pantheon, we still think open source can win out when it scales well. In the last year, we've scaled the security of HTTPS to be an included feature at every plan level. In the last year, we've moved the majority of our infrastructure to Google Cloud, a change that makes it easier than ever for us to fulfill our 99.95% uptime guarantee. And by building on the best modern infrastructure available, by taking the performance of Drupal cache metadata to the edge of a global CDN, we find that sites moving to Pantheon commonly run upwards of 50% faster than they did on previous DIY configuration of in-house servers or another cloud. With standardized infrastructure, web teams can focus on what makes their sites special. They can publish content and deploy code changes without friction. Drupal succeeds when we make it as easy as possible for people to own, organize, and publish their content. So now, let's hear from a man who knows the value of owning your own online presence. He's leading by example with his own blog. He's using a posse strategy of publish on your own site, syndicate elsewhere. I recommend you check it out on his blog. So now, everyone, let's hear from the man of the hour, the creator of Drupal, the blogger from Belgium by way of Boston, the driver of the drop, Dries Buytaert.
Awesome. Thank you. That was awesome. The blogger of Belgium. That's a first. Good morning and welcome. I've actually never been to Nashville, but I'm very excited to be here for the week. I have a lot to cover in this Driesnote, and so we decided to do things a little bit different. Like I'll be talking for an hour, and then we'll have a separate Q&A session on Thursday. So you can still tweet your questions. I think it's #Driesnote. We'll pick them up, and then we'll talk about all your questions on Thursday. So, as I was preparing for this keynote, I spent a lot of time thinking about the past, actually. You know, when back and was thinking like, wow, this little thing that started in my dorm in Belgium has grown quite large after 17 years. And I was thinking about all the impact that Drupal had and has, right? From giving people a voice, to preserving the open web, to helping thousands of nonprofits fulfill their mission, right? And if I think about the combined impact of Drupal, I'm really excited, right? I really want to help drive that forward. And so in preparing for this keynote, I actually spent a lot of time thinking about the future and the things that we need to do to continue to grow Drupal, so that we can continue to have the impact that we have. And so the central theme of this keynote will be, grow together. And so the keynote will be organized in 3 sections. You can see them here. I'm going to start with an update on Drupal 8. I'm going to talk about how we can grow adoption of Drupal. And then I'm also going to talk about how we can foster the community. All right? So let's start with Drupal 8. I'm sure you've all seen that we released Drupal 8.5 about a month ago, which was a great release. Was the effort of a lot of people. So thank you very much for everybody that contributed. We released it on time, right? We're getting really good at release management and delivering on those dates as we promised we would. And best of all, it actually ships with lots of great new features. We made significant improvements to making Drupal easier to use, thanks to the media initiative and the content moderation module as well. We started to simplify site building. We added a settings tray and an off-canvas capability. That's a really valuable building block to start simplifying the experience. And this one is a big one. After years, the migrate module is stable. Yeah. More than 100 people made this happen. It was a very big effort, and this is a very big milestone. It works for non-multilingual websites. If you have a multilingual website, we're still working through some final issues, but I really encourage people to start upgrading their sites if you haven't already. And then we've also been working really hard on making Drupal API first. This is something that we've been investing in, really, that we've been working on for 2.5 years. And I really feel like with 8.5, things are starting to come together, and Drupal is really becoming a state-of-the-art API-first platform. And so it's very exciting. And so as a result, because of these improvements in the REST API, organizations are really starting to build these ambitious digital experiences that I've been talking about. Here's an example of New Balance. They obviously have a Drupal site, a regular Drupal site, but they also use Drupal in a decoupled way to power a mobile application, right? Drupal acting as a content repository. And then they allow customers or users of this mobile app to personalize it based on the sports they're interested in, the things that they like, and so they have a very custom experience, and it also integrates with these watches. So it's pretty cool to see large brands adopting Drupal 8 to build sort of, new kinds of experiences. I have another example. Chris Hamper decided to use Drupal 8.5 to build an augmented reality application. So I'm going to show you a little video, and Chris himself narrated the video, so I'm going to play it for you.
What you see here is a decoupled React VR app that uses Drupal 8 to power a virtual tour. The tour is built up of interconnected scenes, each with a 360-degree photo or video panorama that can be explored, as well as ambient sounds and hotspots that show images, videos, and textual information. We wanted to create an immersive user experience that took advantage of many of the things that make Drupal 8 stand out. All of the content, including media, lives on a Drupal site. The scenes are modeled as nodes of a custom content type, using Drupal core, some media initiative modules, and paragraphs. In fact, no custom code was needed on the Drupal side other than a tiny bit of admin interface theming. The React VR front end runs in any web browser and even on a web-enabled VR headset. It pulls in the scene information from Drupal using JSON API. This was super simple to set up thanks to the work of the API First initiative. I've seen VR and Drupal used together, but wanted to take it to the next level. I considered, what ways could we integrate the admin experience with the VR experience? How can we import content in the simplest way possible? We decided to see if we could enable a site admin to use drag and drop to pull media right into the VR scene and precisely position the elements, all from within the Drupal backend. Looking at a scene's node edit page, you can see how it's built up as structured content. The same principles that have made Drupal so powerful and flexible for years can be reimagined and used in novel ways.
Isn't that cool? Oh. Pretty cool to see how all of the building blocks that we have in Drupal 8 can be used. And there's a lot of other great things on the horizon, things that we're working on for future releases of Drupal, and you can see some on the screen. But I want to highlight two of them. And that's the work that's been happening on drag and drop layouts and page building, as well as the better out-of-the-box experience. And so I'm going to show you a video of these two things combined, all right? And I'll talk a little bit more about it after, but here's what that currently looks like and what we're trying to work towards. So here you see basically the layout builder, and you can add sections, and then within each section, you can see that you can add a block. And these blocks can be anything. It could be content, like we do here, but it could be little experiences as well. It doesn't have to be just content. We make it easy to find content and to do it sort of with the new, actually, settings tray. You can also use add section to sort of stack a section in a section. And this allows you to build much more complex layouts. Here we're going to just add a big block into that section that you see here on the screen. And then each of these blocks you can click on, and then you can change the configuration, or you can move them around through moving them around here. Here we'll see or show how we can actually make a change, like we're going to change from plain style to a green filter, so the content looks a little bit more green. It's just an example of the things that we'll be able to do and do very easily. So this is pretty cool, isn't it? People have been working really hard on making this possible, and I'm very excited to see this in future versions of Drupal. Now, the images that you see here are part of the out-of-the-box initiative, right? And so what we decided to do is we wanted to, instead of sort of launching people in an empty Drupal site like we do today, we want to give them an option, people an option to, select this install profile. And instead of an empty website, they will get a website that looks like a magazine website, and in this case, a food magazine website. And this is great for a couple of reasons. One, if you're an evaluator, you can actually see Drupal in action. You can actually see a real site, and so that's good for evaluators. It's also good for salespeople, people that want to show Drupal to potential customers, right? They can actually go and show something. But it's also good for people that want to learn Drupal, because you can actually look under the hood and see how these content types have been created, how the views have been constructed, and the likes, right? And so I have an interesting or a funny little anecdote here, because as a team was working on this install profile and the theme and the images, somebody said, is it actually okay to use these images, because we're going to ship this with Drupal, and there's like 1 million Drupal sites, right? So these images will end up in a lot of places. And we don't know if we have the copyright. And so Keith, who is one of the key contributors to the out-of-the-box initiative, basically said, you know what, we need to cook these recipes and take our own photos so we can safely distribute them, right? And then he started cooking, and his wife, Sharon, basically had to stop him because he was making a huge mess in the kitchen. And so she got involved, and they both run a business, a Drupal shop, so they're both Drupal business owners. And so together, they started cooking all of these recipes. And then Holly, who's a colleague that helps them in their business, also got involved. And so all of a sudden, the three of them decided to cook all these recipes and contribute them back to Drupal. It's a wonderful story. So I reached out to Holly and Sharon, and I'll let them talk about this for a little bit.
We discovered we had some of the images of food we wanted to use, but not the recipes to go with it, or we had a recipe and not the image. Sometimes it was making a recipe to get the image, and sometimes it was working backwards. So, right, we've got this great picture of the quiche, now we need a recipe for it.
We realised it was so important to avoid any copyright issues, and the only way that we would be able to do that was to create original content. And that basically meant cooking and coming up with original recipes, and that's what we had to do. So it's the only way to avoid, we explored other options, and they just weren't viable. I think we spent a whole weekend and a whole week, and we've still got some recipes and things to publish. So yeah, I think it was like 13, 14 dishes. And we had to be really careful that we didn't create a recipe that was similar to anything that had already been previously published. So there was no discrepancies there.
I wanted something that really suited the kind of high-end glossy magazine.
Definitely.
So it was really worth putting the time and the effort in getting everything up to scratch, really. The pictures are great. I'm blown away by how well the pictures came out and how professional they look. How professional the whole thing looks, the whole project.
Yeah.
So it's quite amazing, really, that we actually did that.
Yeah, in that sense that it's people donating their time and wanting to get involved. And it's nice, actually, using other channels to get feedback from other contributors, sharing it with other people involved in the initiative. That was good fun. And yeah, I think I actually quite shocked myself. I could make quite a nice sponge cake.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. It's these things that make Drupal great, and they spend a whole week cooking, a whole week. I mean, just to contribute to the out-of-the-box initiative. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of other great things on the horizon. I can't go into all of them today, but you can see some of them on the screen. Now, all of these things come together in a roadmap, and I'm not going to go through all of the details here. Also want to give a caveat that because we're a large community of volunteers and because we're constantly reevaluating what we do and how we work, this isn't necessarily set in stone, but this is our best intent right now of what we would like to deliver. Again, I'm not going to go through all of the details here, but I wanted to show you roughly what we're focused on. And so what you see in the blue is really things that make Drupal easier to use for content creators and also site builders. So we're really focused. I think it's about 3/4 of the screen. It should be light blue. We're really focused on that persona. In yellow, you see things that we're working on that will make it easier to maintain and install Drupal, as well as migrate Drupal. And then we're also focused on differentiation, and you can see in red is primarily all of the stuff around the API First initiatives, which allows us to do some pretty cool new things. I think if we do all of these things, we will really see Drupal 8 accelerate. So I'm very excited about this roadmap and the fact that we have a roadmap, which we haven't always had in the past. On top of that, we can see that Drupal 8 adoption is growing substantially. We saw a 51% increase in adoption of Drupal 8 websites compared to a year ago. This is based on the data that we have available. And this one is even better. The module ecosystem of contributed projects, not just modules, is really accelerating as well. Like just in 1 year, we have 81% more stable modules. And we have even more modules in development. And to put that in perspective, what it means is that in the first two and a half years of Drupal, we had X modules, and just in the last year, we had roughly the same amount of modules that became stable. So it's very encouraging, in my mind, for Drupal 8's readiness. So in short, I think Drupal 8 is doing better and better. I think it's doing pretty well. We have a plan. The module ecosystem is becoming mature. We're making it easier and easier to use for content creators and site builders and evaluators with the out-of-the-box initiative. The community is very engaged, porting all of these modules. We're releasing Drupal 8 on time, and we see more and more, impressive digital experiences come online with Drupal 8 as well. So that's a quick update on Drupal 8. Next, I'd like to talk about growing Drupal adoption. All right, so I think it's important that we continue to find ways to grow. And so what we did is I asked the team at Acquia to go and interview people. And so they talked to, over 100 people. In parallel, Megan from the Drupal Association did the same. She went on a listening tour and listened to people all around Europe, actually, and the US. And Annie Miller, who's a board member of the Drupal Association, also ended up talking to a lot of people, asking them questions about how can we accelerate Drupal 8? What's blocking you with Drupal 8? Right? And so we got all these questions or answers back. And what we saw is a lot of consistent patterns. The things that people were saying were very consistent depending on, regardless of where these people were. And so what we did is we looked at all these answers, and we picked out the things that we felt were really important to address, the patterns that bubble to the top. And we carefully selected items to tackle that we felt were both realistic and achievable. Right? So I'm going to show you some of these things. And all of them, in my mind, we should be able to do in 12 months or less. Right? So these won't be huge initiatives like some of the ones that we have, but there will be smaller things that we can tackle relatively quickly. They're all organized in 4 categories of things that we need to do. I'm going to walk you through each of those. I'm going to start with improving the technical evaluation process. This was actually interesting because as we were doing the research, Matthew Grasmick actually wrote a blog post about this. How many of you have read this blog post? All right, a good amount of people. And so what Matthew did, he compared installing Drupal to other PHP frameworks. And what he learned is that it was really hard to install Drupal. Like, he basically needed to click more than 20 times, and he spent more than 15 minutes just getting it installed. And he gave up counting and timing, right? It took him way longer compared to some of the other frameworks, which was a lot easier to do. And so I reached out to Matthew, and I asked him to record that experience, right? And so not only do we have a blog post, I'm going to show you a video of what that experience looked like. There is his side. I saw many of you laughing, but I'm not sure. I think we should. I love this image. It's like this little kid. He starts with laughing, and then he starts crying. That's how I felt when I first watched this video. It's kind of funny, but it's really sad. That's what it's telling you, right? And so if you think about what Matthew showed us is this entire, evaluator path, right? From the discovery on Drupal.org, trying to download it, using documentation to get it installed, then the actual installation process itself, and then, to being able to start the trial experience once it's installed. So if you think about all of the initiatives that I just talked about and the roadmap that I showed you, all of these things are focused on people that have already installed Drupal, right? So we haven't really focused on the entirety of the experience. And so what we should do is do exactly that. And this is something that we heard loud and clear, not just from Matthew, but a lot of people that we interviewed told us this. Like, it's just too hard to install and to evaluate. And so what we need to do is we need to make it easier to discover, download, and install Drupal using documentation. And then once it's installed, once people get into Drupal, we need to really demo the strength of Drupal versus giving this blank page. And that experience needs to look really good because first impressions matter. You know, when people try these things, first impressions matter. And so what we did is we talked to the Drupal Association, and they agreed to help fix the, you know, sort of the path on the website to the evaluator experience. It's actually part of their plan for 2018. And just a couple days ago, they already launched a new homepage, you know, with the help of 6.11. Yeah. It's exciting, and they're starting to focus on personas like you can see here. So if you're a technical evaluator, you would probably click developers and sort of launch into that experience. If you are a non-technical evaluator, like a marketer, there can be a different experience because those people may not want to install Drupal. They may want to look at videos and things like that, right? So we can make an optimized experience for each of these personas. So we're going to get that done, and we're already working on that. Then we need better documentation. And in talking to Matthew, who wrote the blog post and created the video, he has agreed to join the documentation working group. We discussed this with the documentation working group, and Matthew is going to run an initiative to get our documentation for the getting started experience fixed. So yeah, thank you, Matthew. We need a better demo and a very accessible demo of what Drupal can do. And I think hopefully we'll get the umami and the out-of-the-box experience into Drupal 8.6, the next release, and that will fix that one. So that's good too. And I've shown you this before, but and then lastly, we also need to make the experience sort of Drupal better too. And so we've been talking to people about this, and we decided to take a two-phase approach, right? So as step one, we want to do a refresh of the admin theme. And we'll do that, you know, relatively simple with CSS and things like that. And Christina and Roy have already been prototyping some things, and have also agreed to lead an initiative to help refresh the Drupal admin theme. So we get a better out-of-the-box experience. Longer term, I think we should be making more drastic improvements, right? We should think about the information architecture. Is that still good? We should think about making a lot of the interaction patterns more dynamic. And so hopefully, the work of the JavaScript modernization initiative will help us do that in time. And so I think we have a plan for this as well. This is what Drupal looks like today. And this is what it looks like with some of the experimentation that Christina and Roy are doing. And so it looks a lot more fresh. This may not matter to some of you, but I can tell you it matters a lot to the people that we talk to, especially the less technical people, because you have to imagine, they spend 8 to 10 hours a day using Drupal, right? They're creating content and doing all of these things. And so when you spend that much time using Drupal, the experience really matters. And so I think it's a great initiative, and I'm excited to see where this will get us. So that was number one. Number two is to improve the content creator experience. Again, we heard this loud and clear from a lot of people. And you know, in these interviews, we heard that people want like a Facebook-like experience or a Trello-like experience. So what's happening is in their day-to-day lives, people use these very easy-to-use web applications, and they expect the same kind of experience from Drupal, right? And so if you look at Facebook, for example, they make it very easy to upload multiple images. While these images are uploading, you can already start changing the captions and the titles. They have like advanced features like geotagging. I mean, you can do all of these things super easy. And that's what people want. People want these kinds of things. And if you compare that to Drupal, it looks a lot more basic and not as intuitive, right? And so there's a big delta between what these applications do and what Drupal does today. Now, fortunately, the people behind the media initiative are working on this, right? And what they're working on looks a lot better than what we have today. It's tremendous progress, and I'm very excited about the work they do. And I encourage them to keep making progress, right? In fact, I think we should really look at competitors. This is Squarespace, and you can see how they do page building, but there we go. Woo! Thank you, AV team. More things are coming online here. I can't quite see it yet, but what we need to do is improve the content creation experience, right? We need more drag and droppy stuff for media management, layouts, and page building. And these two first items are critical to almost everyone that we spoke to. The third item is about staging, content staging and previews, which were critical for the people that needed it. So it's almost like binary. If you need it, it's critical. If you don't need it, it's not critical. And then people also asked for this modern administration experience. Now, the first three items are actually existing initiatives that we've already launched, and we have teams of people working on that, right? So that's great news. We're working on the right things. And the last item I've already spoke about in the previous section, right? It's what we're doing with the refresh of the admin team, and over time, we'll have the JavaScript modernization initiative, which will help us build something even more compelling. So that's two. The third thing we need to do is improve the site builder experience. I don't know what's happening. I'll wait a second. There we go. Maybe I should stand still. It's just like in Vienna. If I walk around, bad things happen. So we need to improve the site builder experience. And as we interviewed people, there was a lot of different pieces to this. One of the things that people mentioned was configuration management. And configuration management is actually new in Drupal 8, right? It's not something that we had in Drupal 7. And so we have 2.5 years of learning with configuration management. And in those 2.5 years, we've learned a lot of things. And what we have come to conclude is that there's key features missing. And so to explain you what configuration management is, I think a lot of people understand it, but it allows you to make changes to your development environment, push these configuration stages to staging, and ultimately to production, right? It's key for building applications nowadays. And so while this is great, we need to support more real-life workflows. And an example of that, and just one example, is let's say you have an email service like SendGrid. What you wouldn't want to happen is that your Q&A team, your quality assurance team, accidentally emails all of your users while they're testing, right? And so that would happen because all of the configuration is the same. And so your access key or whatever to this email service is stored in staging. And so really what you want is you want to be able to have contextual configuration so that maybe in this case, in this example, you can have test keys, right? So you don't end up emailing all of your users. How many people have done that? See? A lot of people have done this. And so really, Drupal should make that easy. There's many other examples of this kind of thing. I just wanted to give you one example. And so we need to make it more contextual, and we need to better support these common developer workflows, right? The second piece, the second item that a lot of people brought up was Composer. I can already feel like the Composer. But Composer is important. And so I want to talk about it next. And so in Drupal 7, we were on an island. And it was a very special island. It's a floating island, as you can see. There was this party on the mainland, and we weren't able to go to the party. And so what we did in Drupal 8 at least the core developers, they started using Composer to manage dependencies on other PHP projects. And so it allowed us to use and reuse what other PHP communities were building. Like Symfony would be a great example, or Twig, right? And to manage all of these pieces, we started using Composer. And so in talking to all of these people, a lot of the technical people said that they too want to use Composer for their stuff, for managing sites, for building their modules. And so in many ways, we got like half of the island, because it works for core and core developers, contributors, but it doesn't quite work for the rest of the world yet, right? And so what we need to do is we need to go all the way to the mainland so we can join that party. And this would help contribute module maintainers use their, use other libraries and stuff like that, right? And so it prevents us from having to reinvent the wheel and all of these things. Now, we do need to make this better. I do want to make it very clear that we're not proposing that Composer becomes a requirement or that it becomes the only way of doing things, right? There can be multiple ways of doing things. What we're talking about is making the Composer option better so that it's a first-class option, right? And this is actually interesting because we could use that work to build less technical solutions or non-technical solutions on top of that. Like, for example, automated updates, which I spoke about in Vienna, or maybe a project browser. There is a potential that we can build these solutions on top of Composer. We have to experiment with that, and we have to research that, but I think that's an exciting part. This, by the way, is not something unique to Drupal or PHP. All of the other web communities are doing exactly that. JavaScript with NPM, Ruby with Bundler, and so it's basically us doing what the rest of the world is doing. And so what we heard loud and clear from a lot of people is that we need to make this easier. The third thing that we heard a lot about is how are we going to make required updates easier, right? A lot of people said, this is really hard. And so the current situation is that every 6 months we have a new minor version of Drupal, like 8.5, and it comes with all of these new features like the ones that I showed you. And that's a great thing, it's great for innovation. But after every minor, the previous minor goes unsupported, right? And so that means that development teams have 6 weeks to upgrade before losing security coverage. And that can be a challenge because, as I mentioned, we have all these new features in every minor. And so because of these new features, teams need to prepare for the upgrade, they need to test for the upgrade, and then they need to do that in time. And this happens this happens twice a year, not 6 times a year. And so the feedback that we got is that, this is actually a bigger hurdle than we had with Drupal 7, and it's tough for us to adjust to. So one approach, there might be other approaches. One approach that we could take is we could extend the security support for an entire minor release, right? And so we need to think about this carefully, and we're figuring this out because it would create more burden on the security team, for example. And that group is largely volunteers, so they would have to take on more work, and we need to figure out how we can support them. It also has implications for contributed modules. We may have to support semantic versioning for contrib. And it also has implications on the Drupal association because we may have to make changes to Drupal.org to support this as well. So a lot of things to figure out, but that's an idea that was suggested by several people. So to improve the site builder experience, we need to do these 3 things: configuration management, Composer, and a longer grace period between required updates. So the first 2, we proposed initiatives in the issue queues. And so I think there's alignment between the different stakeholders. We invited all of the stakeholders to the conversation, the contributed module authors that have built solutions for this in contrib, as well as the core committers. And there's a general consensus that it would make sense to move some of these capabilities into core. And so what we're doing right now is figuring out the details in the issue queue. So I feel pretty good about, getting this fixed in a reasonable amount of time. And really the same thing is happening here The security team and the Drupal 8 release managers are working together on figuring out how to make this possible. And as I said, this team is largely volunteers, and so more dedicated people on the security team would help a lot. And so if you have any employees that are on the security team, consider giving them some more time, because that would allow us to move forward with this, most likely. So I think these were the three most important things that we've heard, and I'm happy that we have put in place a lot of plans to fix them, hopefully over the next 12 months. The last one I want to talk about is promoting Drupal to non-technical decision makers. And this one we also heard loud and clear. But let me explain a little bit how I see things and what has happened. So historically, it was technical decision makers selecting the CMS. In the first 15 years of Drupal, we saw tremendous growth because of that. Techies love Drupal. They love open source. We've definitely won their hearts and minds. But more recently, things have changed. Like if you think back 10 years ago, a website was probably something people spun up. They copy-pasted some text in it, and then they walked away from the website, maybe came back after 2 weeks. Like, it wasn't something that people spent their days in, right? And so now, we have a lot of non-technical people, marketers, content creators, that spent their entire day, working in the CMS. And so increasingly more, they are influential in the decision-making process of what CMS to use. And they look for things like how easy it is to use, right? So it's very, very logical to me. And so a lot of these people don't know Drupal. If they do know Drupal, they may have the wrong impression of Drupal, or Drupal may have a bad reputation with them. They also don't necessarily understand open source as well as technical people do, right? So we need to educate them on the values of open source. But if we want to grow, it's critical that we address this persona and that we really optimize for this persona in addition to optimizing for the technical persona. I'm not saying we should drop the technical persona, but we need to really focus on this. And this became really clear when talking to the agencies. We heard it from non-technical people, but we actually heard it louder from Drupal agencies, because they're trying to sell Drupal to these people, right? And they said, we need more help selling to non-technical decision makers. And I need Drupal to get on the radar of non-technical decision makers, so please help me. And the way they express that is in, give me sales support, give me demos, give me white papers, give me documentation that compares Drupal with other CMSs, so I can actually win when I'm in a competitive situation, right? So they need that kind of support. Now, if you think about this, the way we're organized on the non-technical side is a little bit like this. We have the Drupal Association, we have all these Drupal agencies, we have local Drupal associations that are promoting Drupal, and all of these organizations are doing great things, right? They're all trying to promote Drupal, but we're not really working together as much as we should be, right? And so really what we should be doing is collaborate. And funny enough, or at least I think it's a little funny, is we do an incredible job collaborating on the technical side. I mean, we've built one of the largest communities in the world, and thousands of us are collaborating on code. We build tools, we build processes, all of these things to get really good at technical collaboration, and we have nothing like it on the non-technical side. Isn't it a little ironic? And so, in talking about this, I discussed this with Megan at the Drupal Association and with the Drupal Association board, actually, and we felt the best way to get started is to actually, hire somebody that can help us, coordinate all of these volunteers, right? And if we do that, I think we can get some amazing results. Maybe launch Drupal in space just like Tesla did. But joking aside, I think having a marketing initiative to promote Drupal could really help Drupal 8 take off, right? And so again, what we want to do here is launch $100,000. Fundraise $100,000, and we would use that money to hire a coordinator as part of the Drupal Association staff to get all of these different groups, associations, agencies to collaborate on producing these marketing materials. Some of that money would also go to organizing sprints or to create certain assets. And so I challenged Megan only 4 or 5 days ago, and I said, if you can raise $50,000 by the Driesnote, I will wear a cowboy hat on stage. And so she did it. She texted me yesterday. I know. So she was also kind to provide me that hat. So here I am. Very, very happy to see it. There's a lot of organizations contributed to this, and I think it's a testament to how much people want this, right? When we told people about this, they're like, yep, I need this, and I'm willing to give you money for this. In addition to that, we had individuals contributing. It doesn't have to be just the agencies that contribute to this. So hopefully, if you can, we would welcome a donation. And let's see if we can raise $100,000 by the end of the week. That would be fantastic. We can get going on this initiative. If that doesn't work, we may have to use the Drupal.org servers for some crypto mining. But we're going to get there somehow. Hopefully, it's by collecting donations. All right? So these are the four things that we discovered. All of these are, here in an overview, you can see all of the different stakeholders. This was something very new to us, to work with all of these different stakeholders, not just the core contributors. You can see the issue IDs of where we're proposing these plans and where we're already discussing them. You see that for most of those, we have already volunteers that offer to be the initiative coordinators. So they're working on these things. We're still looking for some people, so please do get involved. If you want to find them a little bit more easy, instead of remembering the issue IDs, you can basically search for simplified Drupal in the issue queue, and you'll find them very easily. And so, as I said, I think all of these things are doable. Most of them are already in progress. And I think if we do them, and we do them well, we'll deliver a competitive user experience. We'll do a much better job promoting Drupal's benefits to non-technical decision makers. We'll have a better evaluator experience. And we'll have better documentation. And we'll make it easier for people to build and maintain Drupal sites. So what do you think? Is that a good idea? Obviously, these are just our suggestions based on all the research. If you have ideas of your own, we welcome those too. There's many, many ways to get involved here, and we definitely encourage you to do that. All right, for the last section of my keynote, I want to talk about fostering the community. I'm actually going to take my hat off because it's kind of an important topic. And so, as I've said in the past, I think, it's really the community that makes the heart of Drupal, right? It's not the software, it's not the bits, it's the people that do all these wonderful things to support and grow Drupal that makes it special. Because without the community, there would be no software. And I was actually reminded of that last Sunday, not too long ago, when we hosted, with the Drupal Association, we invited a number of community leaders, and we spent a half day talking about what we can do to grow Drupal, and just hearing their stories about all the ways they're helping to grow Drupal was just fantastic. And actually, I got a little bit emotional about it in the end. So this is an important topic, so I want to talk about that next. So if you think about the history of Drupal, since our start, Drupal has grown tremendously, right? Like, we're one of the largest open source communities in the world. There's tens of thousands of people contributing in a variety of different ways. And in the process, in those last 17 years, we actually spent a lot of time scaling the project. Not just the technical side, but the governance and the community side, all of these things. And in many ways, a lot of other open source communities, they look to us and they say, wow, we want to be like you, Drupal. Like, we want to have the same kind of things in place that you guys have in place. And so we're a role model for the vibrant ecosystem that we have, how we do release management, how we do security, the collaboration tools that we've built, the culture, DrupalCon, how we sustain large events all around the world. And so there's a lot to be proud of here, and we really should be. Having said that, in those 17 years, the work of scaling Drupal has never been done. It's a continuous process, and we have more to do. Even though in many ways we're a role model, there's more to do, and I'm going to make it a focus for myself, and I know others are going to make it a focus as well in 2018 to continue to scale how we work together. And I wanted to start with our values, right? And so remarkably, despite the fact that Drupal is 17 years old, we've never documented our values. It's kind of like really strange in a way. And so we need to write them down. And I think that has become clear in the last few years because, market trends, technology trends, we had some difficult times in the community. All of these things combined, I think, made it clear that it would be very valuable to have our values documented. And this was also communicated by the community, by the Drupal governance working group. Right? And it's in difficult times that people want to hold on to our values and refer to our values, and if they're not written down, it's hard. And so the time has come to write them down. And so I spent the last 5 months, really, trying to write them down as a starting point, not as a final point. And so I wrote and I rewrote, showed them away, started again, ran it by people. It was a very difficult process to condense 17 years of learning into, a set of values and principles. So it's challenging work. It was hard work, and by no means will it be perfect, right? But I wanted to make a starting point. And so what I came up with is Drupal's values and principles. And I condensed it to 5 values. And behind those 5 values is a set of principles to make it more concrete. The 5 values are these. The first one is prioritize for impact. I talked a little bit about this in the beginning of the keynote, but I do believe that the impact that Drupal has really, in many ways, is our collective purpose as a project, right? And so some of the principles, we'll talk about that. The second one is strive for excellence. I think a lot of people can probably relate to this one, I think. In the community, we're never happy, right? We always want to do better. We're not afraid to constantly reevaluate ourselves. And we're not afraid to change things. Just think about going from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, right? We're always trying to do better. And so the second value is all about that. The third value is about collaboration. It really talks about the importance of the community, and it's what makes the project special. The work we do together is really what makes us great. Well, the previous one was about how we all work together as a large group. This one is about how, interpersonal reactions, how we behave one to another. And lastly, there's enjoy what you do. This is sort of the recognition that we have fun. We have fun together, whether it's a pre-note or trivia night, or maybe wearing a hat on stage. We should always have fun in the things that we do. And so behind each of those, there's a set of principles that I'll show you next. And I won't go over all of these, but I'll show you one. And basically, it's a chunk of text that explains, in this case, it explains some leadership principles, what we expect and not expect from leaders. And so I encourage you to go read those. I've published them. Published them today on our website. You can go find them at d.o/principles, and it's 1.0 alpha. The alpha is important because, as I said, they're not done. But I got to a point where I wanted to enroll all of you, invite all of you to give feedback, right? So I'm opening it up to the community to help them make better. I think we should test them. We should debate them. We should make them more robust. Maybe there's principles missing. You know, certain needs aren't met. And so we should definitely work on them together. And then we should find ways to live them. Yeah. Thank you. So this will be a living document. We'll have releases. We're software engineers after all. And so over time, I really hope it will help us work together even better, right? That's really the goal of the document. And I wanted to just highlight, to wrap up the keynote, I wanted to highlight 3 of those principles. And I don't want to show you text, but I wanted to bring these things to life with a couple stories, right? And so the ones that I chose for this keynote, you can see on the screen. The first one is choose to lead. And, you know, I was reading Twitter, and it was in the beginning of the year, a couple of months ago, I saw this tweet from Mark Conroy. And, you know, Mark is one of the contributors to the Out of the Box initiative. And he got involved with Drupal about 2 years ago, and it was just trying to create a theme for himself, and then ended up creating teams and contributing them back, and all of a sudden, he finds himself contributing to Core with the Out of the Box initiative. And you could tell from his tweet that he was really like inspired by that, right? And so it's a great example of how somebody can choose to lead. And so the choose to lead principle, when you read it, you'll see, you know, it talks about the fact that leadership is something that's not appointed. It's not something that's given to you. It's something that you step into yourself. You know, you take on the responsibility and the ownership and make it work. And so I reached out to Mark and have a little video of Mark talking about his experience.
A lot of people say that one of the biggest barriers to adoption of Drupal is the lack of themes that are available. And I looked at converting some themes from WordPress into Drupal. So I converted the WordPress 2017 theme to Drupal. That's the official WordPress theme for when you install WordPress at the moment. And I converted a Dynamic News Lite theme, I think it's called, and some other themes I was looking at. And I put those all on Drupal.org. And then about 2 years ago, Wim Leers, I think it was, mentioned to me would I be interested in helping out with a new team for Drupal core. And I thought, yeah, this sounds great. And a team was put together, and I joined in with Larry and Keith J and Christina Chumiez and some other people. And we started working on what eventually became the Out of the Box initiative. And at the end of that, I thought, wow, this is just amazing altogether. I not alone can create a Drupal team now and contribute it to the community. And I've mentored some people and getting their Git status and things like that as Drupal teamers. But the official team for a new profile for Drupal core, I was one of the people that made that happen. And I wasn't the main person, and I didn't do all of the work, and I certainly didn't do even most of the work. But it just felt amazing to be part of that team along with the rest of the people. That was just, yeah, I think that was my contribution highlight for Drupal. The last maybe 2 years, I've really felt I found my place in the community in terms of I would go to Drupal Camp London or go to DrupalCon, and I'd hang out with mostly the Irish people because I knew them. And I kind of find now I can be wandering around the corridors, and 25 or 30% of the people there I would know on a first name basis. And if I meet them in the bar later on, we go and we chat, and there's no sense of who are you and where do you come from. We become friends with a lot of people, a lot of the English Drupal folks, and a lot of the Dutch folks I've become very good friends with. It's given me a career that I never thought I'd have. I'd always loved teaching, and I'd always loved web design. I thought if I wasn't teaching, web design would be a good career. But since I hadn't gone to college to study web design, I presumed, or computer science, I could never do that as a career. Using Drupal showed me that, hey, hang on, most people can do the heavy lifting for you, and you can do the configuration part. So I became a site builder. And then I realized when I knew enough with site building, hey, I can change some CSS, and so that allows me to do some front-end theming. And then I realized after that, jQuery isn't too hard, and jQuery is in Drupal core, so I can write interaction scripts. So without doubt, yeah, it has changed my life.
Yeah. It's such a great example. And it's a great example of choose to lead, but I think it's also a great example of how it's rewarding, right? Like he did this, and all of a sudden, he built these meaningful relationships that Megan talked about. And it was very, very empowering to him. And so Mark actually is a great example also of the second principle, which is everybody or everyone has something to contribute, right? And so, you know, this is really what makes Drupal so successful, the fact that so many of you, individuals and organizations, have contributed. And contributing can mean many different things, right? I want to be clear. It's not just code. It could be financial support, like donating to our marketing initiative. It could be writing documentation. It could be organizing events. It could be mentoring others. It could even be as simple as telling one of your best friends about Drupal. That is a contribution too, right? And so if you think about it that way, everyone has something to contribute. And as I said, Mark is a great example of an individual contributing code in this case, but there's also organizations contributing. And lately, Pfizer is an organization that has contributed a lot to Drupal. Several full-time people working on the workflow initiative. And so I had a chance to talk to Mike Lamb, who is a senior director, architecture, engineering, and development at Pfizer. And I have a little video that explains why Pfizer contributes.
Pfizer used Drupal at the core of our digital platform strategy. We started this in around 2012. At that time, we had around 60 different content management systems that we were launching sites on. So as of that time, as of 2012, it became the only go-forward platform. Since then, we've launched several thousand different sites on Drupal, and it still averages out as more than one site being launched every business day since we initially made that decision. And those sites go from very large, complex portal-type sites with lots of different integrations, now also to applications that are the content backend for mobile applications or omni-channel campaigns, all the way down to small, simple websites that may be deployed to many, many different markets. But Drupal for us delivers that entire spectrum. Every website initiative that we launch is launched on Drupal. So in terms of what we've contributed to Drupal, in Drupal 7, we did a lot of work around the deploy module and ways to stage content and then deploy that across the environment. That was done in Contrib. And as we started to look at how we do this in Drupal 8, it certainly wasn't a case of just migrating those modules to work with Drupal 8. So that's gradually through experimentation with Contrib modules and then ultimately into the workflow initiative that led to the Drupal 8 workflow initiative, where we've contributed with multiple people effectively working full-time on that initiative, and then other people working part-time. It's always better to contribute that enhancement back to the community rather than to try and maintain a local forked version. Absolutely, when it comes to maintaining our sites, it's more cost-effective to do that. Also, in my experience, the teams who contribute back, and I can see this through data, through the credit system, the teams who contribute back more on Drupal.org, they deliver higher quality sites. They absolutely do. They write code that they're actually proud of. Collaboration with other parties, which is essential in software development, is second nature to people who do this. They don't fork these modules to make minor changes, which can cost a lot for us to maintain them. And they always build things assuming that they are going to be used by other people. So people build things in ways where they can actually be reused, which can be of great benefit, both from just the cost of rebuilding something as well as accelerating delivery, but accelerating time to value, because you already have the thing that's ready to be reused rather than rebuilding it. So being part of the broader community, and Drupal itself, it makes you feel proud. And certainly when people are doing work that makes it into core, there's without a doubt a sense of pride that they have done work that's made it into this project that's used by so many websites. And it also means when you come across a Drupal website or you notice it's a Drupal website in some way, there's certainly pride that's there. So Drupal really becomes part of your life for many people on the team, and they're very proud of working with it, and it's a great feeling.
So yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah. It was a great interview. Actually, we talked for about an hour, and I'd love to publish a longer version because there's not only does Mike and Pfizer, I should say, have several people working on core full time, but Mike also explained how they work with 30, 40 different Drupal agencies every day, and how they require each of these agencies to contribute back. That's a requirement to hire them, right? And so think about that. So, yeah. And so it's sort of Pfizer driving a lot of innovation, directly and indirectly. So imagine we can have 10 Pfizers in the community, right? That would be game-changing. So hope to share the longer video with you and send it around to your bosses. They can take some inspiration from Mike and Pfizer. So finally, to wrap it up, I want to talk about principle 1. And I carefully made this principle 1 because to me, at least, it was the most important principle. Because I think a lot of us contribute to Drupal, because we have to, because we have to make a customer successful, because we have an itch to scratch, as we say in open source. But often that's not it, right? We contribute because we have to do those things, but also because, it's special to contribute something that so many other people can use. And Mike actually talked a little bit about that in his video. And so we derive meaning from our contributions when they matter to us, but even matter more to other people. That's really important. And so I had a chance to talk to Rebecca, who works at the Drupal Association, about this principle.
I'm Rebecca, and I am Director of Marketing for the Drupal Association. In 2013,
Hold on. Sorry.
I'm Rebecca, and I am Director of Marketing for the Drupal Association. In 2013, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That happens when your body's immune system is fighting something else and then decides to kill the beta cells in your pancreas, and you can no longer produce insulin. For managing with type 1, you take a baseline of insulin to keep yourself alive. Insulin is very precise. The difference between 1 unit and 10 units of insulin, they both look like little drops when you put them on a table.
Yeah, but the impact of getting it wrong is...
It's the difference between covering an apple and dying within 30 minutes. So it's a huge risk factor, and the human error involved in that can be devastating. With a pump, it's right, you can see mine right here.
Okay, yeah.
That's my Omnipod, and I have a remote control for that. So I fill the pump with insulin. I actually have an extra here, and that gives me a constant drip of fast-acting insulin. So rather than taking a 24-hour long-acting that I can't adjust throughout the day, I get micro drips of fast-acting insulin every 5 minutes.
So the device on the left arm
The left arm, yes,
is measuring
blood sugar.
And the device on the right arm is injecting insulin.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm a robot.
Yeah. So tell me, how does Drupal come into play here?
About a year in, I got my pump and my continuous glucose monitor. I had listened to some of the Driesnote about ambitious digital experiences, and I thought in my head, I wonder what these are built on, because they're very complex systems, and the data that I can plug in and cross-reference and see what's going on. And I messaged Tim Lennon on Slack and said, how do I find out if something's built on Drupal? And he gave me a couple pointers, and I said, I think that my medical devices are built partially in Drupal. And Google searched to see if any stories popped up or case studies, and a couple things popped up, and then I kind of clicked it all together, and it was this odd moment. I made a little chart in a blog post I wrote. There's me, and I support the Drupal community by working at the Drupal Association, and the community builds the platform, and the platform supports these two devices, and they keep me healthy and alive. It's this nice little circle leading from one to the other, supporting around and keeping me healthy. I think it is really important for the community and everyone who works with Drupal to understand the impact that it can have, because there are great websites and there are ambitious experiences, and then there are really, really meaningful things that can happen.
So yeah. Such a cool story. And what's amazing is there's so many other stories, right? This is just one of the many, many stories in the Drupal project. that at least give me a sense of purpose to keep going what I do. And I hope many of you feel the same. So what I would like to do is keep telling these kinds of stories and make them part of the principles and the values. And I recognize that the stories I told today, they're lacking diversity. And so I really need more help in bringing more diverse stories to the principles and into the keynote. So please, if you want to tell your story, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll keep making this better and better. So that's really what I had. I wanted to talk about these three things. I feel that Drupal 8 is really making great progress, becoming easier to use. The module ecosystem is becoming more mature. Engagement from the community is very healthy. We have a strong track record releasing Drupal on time, and we're starting to see some really impressive digital experiences, come to life. We're going to focus on growing adoption. Launched a series of new initiatives, and we're already have many of these things underway. I'm excited what that means for Drupal in the next 12 months. I think we'll start to see some great outcomes of that. We'll have a more competitive user experience, hopefully. We'll have a better evaluator experience, which is going to be great. We're going to make it easier for people to build, maintain, and upgrade their sites. And we're going to start promoting Drupal to non-technical decision makers to hopefully grow adoption that way as well. And then lastly, as I said, fostering the community is also going to be a priority for this year. And we started today with values and principles, and I think that's a foundational building block on which we can build and do a lot more work around these items. So very excited about these things. I think we've come a long way in those 17 years, and I think we have actually a very bright future ahead of us. And I'm excited to grow Drupal together with all of you. So thank you.
Howdy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please exit this hall by the doors you came in. Please turn left, go to the grand lobby for our awesome group photo. We'll make it really quick, and then we'll reward you with coffee in the exhibit hall. Grab your coffee, then go down to your sessions, which will start promptly at 10:45. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the photo.